Ladies, gentlemen, and expeditioners of some ages, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has quite the lovely cast of characters, and before I go any further, this is an endgame video, and so I want to make sure that if you are not at least past Act 1, get the hell out of here before I keep going. There are 5 playable characters by the time your party is fully formed in this game, and each of them have their own strengths. Some of them excel at being a support for other party members, but today I want to focus on damage, because obviously Maelle is the damage queen of the game, able to hit the highest numbers generally speaking, but some people prefer other characters personality-wise. And if Sciel, for example, is your favorite character's personality, maybe you want to use her for actual damage output, instead of just as a low-effort buff bot like she usually is used. So today we're going to go over one build for each character that makes them the absolute star of the show. I won't talk about what I'm doing with the secondary party members, because in pretty much every situation you'll have the one character at the front doing the bulk of damage, and then the other 2 party members exist to make them stronger. This mostly lines up with either Sciel using Fortune's Fury to double the damage of the main character, and Intervention to give the main character more turns, and Verso with the Verso weapon just to spread his perfection rank damage buff to allies, or if one of those is the main character, then Monoco just for some general buffing and AP spreading. That said, of course, different characters have different caps or limitations, but they are all able to hit quite strong points depending on how you use them and in what way. Starting off with probably the most obvious one, we have Maelle, and with Stendhal and Medallum as a weapon getting nerfed recently, you might think it's totally different than the old super powerful setups for this character, but it's actually only really a slight difference. We still want to use Medallum as the weapon, as even after the bug fix it still seems to be doing way more damage than any other weapon for this character, but now the main skill that we use, and the only one Maelle will use for damage, in an ideal situation at least, is Gommage. This is a tier 3 gradient skill, which means that you unlock it for finishing Maelle's side relationship character quests after reaching Act 3. It straight up kills weak enemies regardless of your stats and regardless of their health, but it is also an extreme damage single hit attack, which means that you can boost the hell out of it with a million different Pictos and Lumina effects, and then you basically just build your other 2 characters for buffing Maelle's damage and for building gradient bar for her, which you can easily do with the charging stun Pictos combined with Verso's free aim shots after causing a break, which you can do with the sniper Pictos to make it also happen from free aim shots. You do also want to pick up Last Chance, as this both sets you to 1 HP, which helps us activate low health buffs, but then also it lets you stay in Virtuose stance in between turn, which allows you to continually set yourself up for the big damage turn that follows, and it makes it a very cyclical style of gameplay for the character. But then you also want to pick up Phantom Strike, just as a nice multi-target option because our main attack is single target only. That said, for the single target gradient skill, you maximize this by not doing any damage with Maelle until you hit 3 gradient charges. Then Maelle can launch off Gommage while in Virtuose stance at low health against the main target. This should delete any enemy in the game that doesn't have a forced phase change, of course, or anything like that. Nice and easy. Here's the full list of Lumina abilities on Maelle. I won't go into too much detail as we have 5 characters to get through here, and a lot of them share similar things, but this is essentially just a lot of Lumina that affect generic damage, just general damage boosters, as well as the ones that give you boosts while at low health, give you boosts against stunned enemies, and the ones that give you boost on the first instance of damage done in each combat. As for attributes for Maelle, you want to go to 99 agility to start, then 99 might, and then with this weapon you want 99 defense to maximize the secondary damage scaling as well. Next up then we have Verso, and this is going to be an updated variation of my original free aim shot setup for him in endgame. The ideal weapon for Verso, even with this, is Simoso, which essentially doubles the damage done of any skill hit, essentially giving you an extra matching pop of light damage, which is great against anything that isn't light resistant, of course. You'll see in this footage, everything that I'm killing with follow-up is dying to 1 hit from follow-up, but you have to keep in mind that the effect from this weapon would literally double that damage if the enemy lived. So I can hit for 80 million, but it would hit for 160 million if they had enough health to actually let me do that. And also it makes you near immortal too, because you cannot die if you were at least in A rank. But you don't get this until super duper endgame as a weapon, like it comes from the hardest boss that exists in the game, in Renoir's Drafts, which you can only access with underwater traversal. Until then, what you want is the blowdown weapon, which is an extremely powerful alternative, giving you bonuses based on being low health, which we want to do anyways for activating damage bonuses, and then it just gives increased light damage with skills, and our main skills all deal light damage. For the skills, the only one that really matters is Follow Up, What this does is deal medium single target light damage, which doesn't sound all that exciting. However, the damage of this is increased dramatically for every free aim shot that you fire this turn before using this attack. On S rank it costs 2 AP, which means that you can fire all of your shots until you have only 2 AP remaining, and then use follow up for the actual damage. So mostly what we're doing is maximizing the amount of free aim shots that we can take each turn to make sure that we can get the full bonus from this, and that we can trigger it extremely frequently. As well, we're getting a bunch of other buffs are surrounding our free aim shots to make that system and that playstyle more valuable for us. The general aims in combat for this one then are to use auto death and second chance with breaking death on your allies so that you can get a full break bar right at the start of combat. The idea being that they die at the start, apply the full break bar to all enemies, and then they will revive. Verso can then start combat by using his free aim shots to just load up one enemy with a bunch of damage, a bunch of effects, and to build up his own perfection rank as quickly as he can. The first shot, because of the Sniper Lumina effect, will cause the enemy to break, which means that you will then be attacking a broken enemy from that point on for a bunch of extra damage. On this first turn, I recommend using every single one of your free aim shots, go down to 0 AP, and then use a base attack. This will get you the most perfection rank gain as possible on the first turn. From there, you'll be on your second Verso turn because of the cheater Pictos, and from here you're going to want to use all of your free aim shots into the priority target until you hit 2 AP, no matter how many shots that takes. Once you hit 2 AP, you want to initiate follow up on the main target. This won't be your biggest damage turn because you haven't been buffed by your allies yet, but you have the ability to make this happen this turn and then also the next turn, so why wouldn't you? The only reason that I don't in some of this footage is because I'm trying to show you the biggest hit, which means not using the smaller one that happens along the way that is still strong enough to one-shot most things in the game. That said, after this turn you go to your allies, you use your allies to buff up Verso, you get Sciel to do the whole Fortune's Fury, intervention, back to Verso, then you can do your very big turn, which is exactly the same concept. You use all of your free aim shots until you hit 2 AP, then you use follow up for your massive chunk of damage, and because it's a skill, it again has whatever damage number you hit get doubled for an extra hit of light damage from the weapon itself. As for the Pictos and Lumina abilities, here is the list for Verso. It is quite similar to Maelle. We don't take first hit bonuses because our big damage will never be the first hit done. We don't take powered attack because this is a build based around a lot of little attacks, and that would otherwise be way too AP hungry if you use that. Instead, we build a lot of free aim shot synergies to let us fire off as many shots as possible per turn and give us the most benefit from doing so. Then we build base attack synergies as well to give Verso extra hits and extra AP from his base attack too. Unlike Maelle, we are setting ourselves to 1 health as well, for which we are just using the auto death Lumina combined with the survivor Lumina, which together makes it so you are set to 1 HP at the start of any combat. For attributes on Verso with this, you want to focus on agility first to 99, then might to 99, and if you're using Samoso, vitality to 99, or if you're using Blowdam because you don't have Samoso yet, you would want to get defense to 99 instead for the secondary weapon scaling that those stats offer. Third up today then, let's talk about Sciel as the main damage dealer star of a setup. For her, it's closer to how we built around Maelle for one big singular pop of damage, except that there is a multi-target attack so it can wipe out entire groups at the same time. It also has some funkier damage boost conditions that are fun and make it interesting. For the weapon, Moisson results in the most general damage for this setup, and this comes from the chromatic Moissonneur enemy, and you can find one of these on the Red Island to the west of Visages out in the continent. As for the actual skills involved in this does have some more stuff going on. Specifically, our main damage dealer and most important skill is our Sacrifice. This consumes all foretell on the enemy and also eats all of your allies' health down to 1 HP. It converts all of that into bonus damage for the attack, so the more foretell stacks an enemy has, the higher damage they will take, but also the higher the current health of your teammates while casting, the more damage the skill does to everything. So on our party members, when doing this, you want to stack a load of bonus maximum health, mostly through specific Pictos, and that makes our damage skyrocket on Sciel. Aside from that, turn 1 you want to use Twilight Slash, which is just for the sake of a nice cheap AP cost moon charge ability. This puts you into moon phase for the next turn. Turn 2 you want to use Spectral Sweep if you are focusing on a single target to get the 10 foretell stacks on one enemy and the sun charge. Or if you're trying to focus on multi-target instead of just one enemy as a priority, you would instead want to use Searing Bond to instead apply 5 foretell stacks, but to every enemy that you are in combat against, because we will be setting everything on burn stacks on the first turn. On Sciel's next turn, you'll be entering Twilight mode, at which point you want to use Fortune's Fury on Sciel herself to double your own damage. Then on your next turn, you will have double damage and be in Twilight mode, which is extra damage, and that's when you pop off properly by using our sacrifice for hundreds of millions of damage. This should end most combats just straight up. If not, you have your other abilities to make up for it, or you can just heal up your allies and use our sacrifice once again. As for the Pictos and the Lumina effects in the setup, this is mostly similar to the Maelle stuff, except that we don't really need the first hit damage boosters, as our biggest hit skill is not going to be our first damage of combat. We are working around the auto death and survivor combo again to start every combat at 1 HP for low health buffs, and aside from that, it's pretty much entirely just AP management and pure damage increases of various kinds. For the attributes on Sciel, you want 99 agility because speed is super important, then 99 might for damage scaling, and 99 luck as our secondary weapon scaling stat to boost the damage even further. Fourth then, let's go over Monoco, who is my personal favorite of the characters, probably unsurprising if you are all aware of my personal personality, but he's one that can be extremely complex at first glance, but is relatively simple once you get the hang of him. The build that I want to go over here is actually most similar to Maelle's build so far, as it is focused around a big, singular hit, gradient attack as the first damage that Monoco deals in combat. For the weapon, you absolutely want Joyaro. This comes from the middle boss of the Eternal Night Sanctuary optional area that you can only access in Act 3. This weapon importantly lets you start battle in Almighty Mask, which is especially useful for AP management stuff at the start, like using Potier Energy, which gives AP to your allies during the setup section. But more than that, it has incredible damage scaling, and the level 10 bonus gives you significant damage increase for every turn you go without taking damage, stacking up to 5 times. Of course, we will only be getting 3 of this bonus, as our plan is to go on Monoco properly on turn 3 to stay in the range of Inverted Affinity, which is a very big damage bonus. But this is still a 60% damage increase from this weapon effect in that scenario, which is quite a nice bonus. As for the skills, Potier Energy, as mentioned earlier, just to spread the AP around as necessary, but the big damage main skill that you're after is Breakpoint, the 3 gradient charge cost attack for Monoco. You get it for completing Monoco's relationship side quest and getting him to relationship level 7. It does 1 hit of extreme damage to a singular target, but on the off chance it doesn't kill your target in this setup, it also fully fills up their break bar and applies break as well, which makes it very easy to just run this attack on loop. So it's just a really strong ability in general, even outside of the massive damage. For the setup in combat, it's essentially just let Verso build up gradient charges the same way that we talked about for Maelle, using Sniper and then charging stun to just shoot the enemy a bunch of times, get Sciel on her turn to use Fortune's Fury on Monoco, and then use Intervention on him for an extra turn. Then he gets to fire off with the gradient attack as his opening damage of combat for absolutely massive output. As for the Pictos and Lumina abilities, this is pretty much the same list as Maelle, as we are building them in identical ways, so nothing too crazy here. Just a ton of generic damage boosts, and then the specific ones for what we're doing here, first hit of combat, gradient attack boost, stuff like that. For our attributes on Monoco, you want to go with 99 agility, then 99 might, and then finally 99 defense for the secondary weapon scaling on Joyaro. Finally today we have Lune, and this is probably going to start to sound pretty similar, because the big trick to making Lune pop off, once again, is her 3 gradient charge cost attack. The weapon that we use to make this really just shoot into the skies is the Sapperim. The main reason that we want this is the level 20 effect on the weapon, 50% increased damage with gradient attacks. It's a simple effect, but perfect for what we are building for. As for the skills, the important one here is of course her tier 3 gradient attack, which is called Skybreak. This is 1 hit of extreme damage to all enemies. It requires very little setup to actually do from Lune herself, as you'd simply be skipping her first 2 turns to build up some damage from the warming up Lumina effect. Use your other characters to then buff her, break the enemy, generate the gradient charges the same as the other entries, using the charging stun Lumina on a free aim shots Verso setup ideally, and then Sciel doubles Lune's damage with Fortune's Fury, gives her the bonus turns, and then Lune can pop off Skybreak, which just should one-shot everything. If anything lives past that point, I recommend having Elemental Trick as a skill as well as Elemental Genesis. Elemental Trick will do one hit of 4 different elements back to back and generate you a stain for each one that you get a critical hit with. We are going to be having 100% critical hit chance when this build is running, so this means that you can get 4 stains consistently from this. Some enemies in the game are, however, immune to an element, and if so, it won't be able to crit when that element hits them, so you would only get 3 stains from Elemental Trick. However, because you have already used the gradient attack, you will have a light stain by default because of the weapon effect, so even if the enemy is immune to an element, you will now have 4 different stains, and you can then, as a result, use Elemental Genesis, which is absolutely massive damage. It hits all enemies, it's 8 hits, it's a lot of output, and we can consistently have that lined up after the gradient attack, and if anything survives the gradient attack, they definitely won't survive this following it up. Moving on to the Pictos and Lune effects to aim for on Lune, it's honestly identical to the Monoco setup that we just had, pretty much. All of the generic damage boosts, the generally useful utility, low health bonuses, the auto death and survivor combo to have you be at 1 HP at the start of combat, gradient boosters, first hit boosters, stuff like that, and make absolutely sure that you have first strike on Lune, as this is the first build that I'm not recommending having 99 agility as your stats. That said, you should focus on building speed as a stat on your actual equipped Pictos to make up the difference there. Moving on to attributes then, 99 might as the main damage scaler, then 99 defense as our weapon's primary scaling stat, and then 99 luck as our weapon's secondary scaling stat, which should also put us at extremely high crit chance right off the bat in combination with the critical moment Lumina effect. And that honestly pretty much does it then, everyone. One extremely unbelievably strong build where each character is the damage dealing star of the show for each one of them. At least, well, you know, the characters that still exist in the endgame, of course. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy any or all of these builds that you try out for yourselves too. Like if you liked the video, subscribe with the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.